A brand new episode of the 4Ps with a lot going on, despite not changing our scenery. And most important, two birthdays celebrated by the two most important ladies in my life, my wife and my daughter, two homemade cakes, two big Zoom video parties with many of their friends, and let's just say it's nice to have the computer back, the camera, the microphone, for myself, and the ability to share with all of you. Being stuck inside for months on end stirs up a whole swirl of emotions, but by reintroducing Michael Jordan into my life at this time has taken my nostalgia to a whole new level, especially without any other current live sports to consume. So let's kick off these 4Ps with something personal and The Last Dance. Simply put, Michael Jordan is the greatest athlete I've ever seen, and in my opinion, the greatest athlete of all time in his respective sport. Growing up in the 80s and the 90s, I'm sure every kid felt this way. You knew we were witnessing this once-in-a-lifetime athlete. Your parents probably had their opinions and might argue with you. Will Chamberlain and Bill Russell were the most dominant. Magic and Larry were more entertaining or important for the NBA. And then there were the greatest in other sports, right? Muhammad Ali, Babe Ruth. Even now, the argument about who is better, Michael or LeBron, is somehow a conversation. But no one has surpassed Michael Jordan, in my mind. And ESPN's The Last Dance, produced in part with former colleagues of mine at the NBA, is just reinforcing it. I've truly enjoyed the opportunity to watch with my son, a budding basketball fan who keeps asking if Michael was better than like Steph Curry and James Harden and Giannis. But I keep explaining and find myself explaining to him and defending and even criticizing Michael as a running commentary just to keep him properly informed as like a side note. Ultimately, I think my issue with The Last Dance isn't the documentary itself, but the man. Even as a kid, I knew Michael Jordan was not an ideal human being or a role model. Uh, he had exceptional qualities. Absolutely. There's no question. His work ethic, the competitiveness, the drive to win, ungodly talent. Also a master marketer and a PR savant, to this day, are incomparable. The fact that once he was on top, he actually never lost in a championship series is the most important stat for me. It's like that killer instinct. Not Babe Ruth, not Muhammad Ali, not Wayne Gretzky, not Tom Brady, and especially LeBron can say that. But the stories about Michael being a control freak, a master manipulator of his image, just the infidelity, the gambling, being cruel to teammates, reporters, and unknown at the time, his general manager, that's left its mark over time. You don't hear that with LeBron, and LeBron's involvement in like charitable, social, political issues has been admirable and important. The documentary story in this case is either told like through Michael Jordan's eyes or clearly with his blessing, as if 30 plus years of new basketball shoes and a logo on many major pro and college sports teams doesn't already do that. So let's enjoy this documentary for what it is. The reminders of the past, a reaffirmation of greatness, and a distraction from, well, I don't even know what anymore. So this week's professional tidbit, the P, and as you can tell, I've broken out the old headset from like 8 years ago, so apologies if the audio is a little tinny. But in the past week alone, I've been on 2 podcasts and moderated 2 live webcast webinar sessions for marketers. It is not a substitute for being live and in person with and across the professional network, but it also has reduced some of the distraction and allows for some new, different thought leadership and content to emerge. There is a lot of talk about what should happen as we move from recovery to readiness to then like that resurgence phase. And while no one should be creating a singular blanket approach, instead thinking of more segmented approaches based on like geography, there may be some common themes. The first, with so much pent up energy, production budgets, and media dollars to spend, I think there's going to be an extended period of just volatility and uncertainty, and then the current caution will give way to this frenzied attempt to both return to normal and spend a lot at once in some sort of use it or lose it mindset. This will then be followed by a longer period of, again, of conservatism. It's hard to say because I'm not really conservative, and focused prioritization. Brand marketers are going to look for even smarter, more efficient ways to connect with consumers through a strategic, data-driven approach to purposeful content. The demand for well-informed, meaningful, and measurable work is going to be high. They'll throw out the old playbooks and put far less stock on instinct and past success. Why? Because consumer expectations and behaviors have shifted a great deal in this short period of time. So brands can no longer rely on the BC, before COVID, data sets or just experiences to inform new strategies and tactics. So as marketers look to maximize their bang to buck ratio, if that's a thing, I don't know, they have to reset all baselines for consumer profile, audience target segmentation. Might have been inside too long. Social listening and sales data. Just because things spiked or dipped during this crisis doesn't mean it will continue post-crisis. We know this. Making those distinctions, though, as quickly and accurately as possible will serve as a blueprint for just totally reimagined brand, digital, and content strategies. It'll also mean the difference between a strong recovery and potential collapse. Something practical. So in the past week with some downtime, I had a chance to read a book called Languages of Leadership by Wendy Bourne, published sometime last year. But really interesting to read as either a leader or an aspiring leader in the current professional and personal state of global affairs. A few really good takeaways, but understanding the type of leader that you are is rooted in 6 basic levels of leadership, structured like a ladder. Right at the bottom of the ladder is the first level, the isolated leader. And isolated leaders work with just a handful of people. They tend to be manipulative and don't care about anyone other than themselves. Now I'm generalizing a little bit, but I think it will be helpful to understand as we move up the chain. So next on level 2 is the interested leader. And these leaders are slightly more engaged, but they don't command as much respect either from their superiors or the people that work for them. In the middle, level 3, is the involved leader. And these are team players who definitely get the job done, but their performance might sometimes be construed as average because they might be in a higher level or position than they potentially should be, or vice versa, actually. So they're just some misaligned understanding of what they should specifically be doing. Now, next up on level 4 is the integrated leader. And these leaders have been noticed, and people are impressed by their work, but they're still seen as having potential, not having truly achieved success. Next, level 5 is the influenced leader. And these are great networkers who are active both inside and outside their organization, inside and outside. They have just really good respect. They're hard workers with a reputation for just getting shit done. And finally, at the top, the very top, is the inspired leader. And these are people who are innovators. They've cultivated working relationships with everyone from the CEO down to the folks in the trenches. And if you want to be running the show someday, this is the level of leadership to which you should be aspiring. Now, no matter where you think you fall on this ladder, you can improve by mastering what the author calls languages of active, directive, and perceptive leadership languages. Now, I can do my best to explain each of these, but you could also read the book in like a few days and just take great value from it. The active leader speaks languages of courage and strength. Preparation as the key to as the key to courage. You can usually anticipate the situations that are gonna cause you fear and then prepare for them. Like, what is the anxiety and how do you best combat that going in? But being a strong leader isn't just about overcoming fears. It means that you're actually willing to make tough decisions even though they might be unpopular. A directive leader is capable of engineering the environment and, in addition, sort of abdicating some of those powers to others. It requires a three-pronged approach. First, observe, second, interpret, and third is intervene when necessary. As well as just being transparent, the directive leader should also be willing to surrender control, delegate. This means giving up, sometimes the glory of what might be successful, but also being aware that our own thoughts and ideas aren't always the best way forward to, to achieve success, and giving control back to others. And the last is perceptive leadership, the language of being a perceptive leader. And that is a language of trust. Trust is built on a foundation of credibility, of respect, and fairness. Credibility gives you the authority to have difficult conversations, and mutual respect allows everyone involved to listen with an open mind. Fairness eliminates fear of reprisals or second guessing and doubt that can often poison conversations and relationships in the workplace. So, in short, the perceptive leader encourages the language of vulnerability. And to master these languages of active, directive, and perceptive leadership, you need to know when and how to use each one. And our last P of the week, which for the last few weeks really has been our political P, but in a time of COVID, it's an interesting and challenging thing. A lot of it comes down to leadership and whether the actions taken or prescribed are actually resulting in meaningful accomplishments. And that's what we as constituents in a political sphere should be thinking about. And what I found myself thinking about a lot, especially lately, is the long-term versus short-term erosion of trust in the role of the presidency. Shocker, I know. On one side, many realize the damage and harm that an unqualified, careless leader can bring to the nation. And many of those people are craving leadership, guidance, change in tone, but also change in policy. On the other hand, many now believe that our problems, whether collectively and maybe even individually, can't be fixed or solved by a government too divided, too selfish, too weak to affect real change. Whether we have a new president in 8 months or another 4.5 years from now, and whether that new president is actually able to create change to truly help people, that also remains to be seen. But politics is about the process by which we look at the priorities, the choices, and actions that help bring about that change. So when it comes back to the same question I found myself asking and answering 20 years later, this week, literally as a senior in college, when I was finishing up my thesis, I'm trying to figure out the question, again, that I did for my American Government Political Science degree. Does history make the man, or does the man make history? Leave it for you to decide.